I want to just if I can, I think some people are a little bit got the wrong end of the stick. I think I'm trying to be kind and diplomatic. I'm actually in a very good mood today, so that should be good news for everybody. What I said at council when we had the meeting, I talked about exceptional finance support, and you've seen no doubt where councillor in this room and member of this cabinet referred to it in another body as a fire sale. And this seems to have drawn some adverse comments on social media from somebody who seems to be quite sensitive to the issue. So I just want to point out to you the facts. These are the facts, and these have come from the City Council's own financial papers. Exceptional finance support was given to Nottingham City Council by way of a capitalisation direction, allowing it to use receipts from the sale of capital assets to support revenue expenditure. And you all remember, and this is from the Nottingham City Council Capital Strategy 25-26 to 28-29, published in March 2025. During November 2023, Nottingham City Council issued a Section 114 report due to being unable to meet its statutory requirement to deliver a balanced budget for 23-24. Following the issue of a Section 114 report, the Council requested and was granted exceptional financial support, brackets EFS, for both 23-24 of £25 million. And then in 24-25, £41 million. That basically means that they have been granted financial support to sell capital receipts, to translate that money into revenue to support the revenue budget. You refer to it as a fire sale, Councillor Cullen. I would never use such talk like that. However, it seemed quite appropriate to me. So, having pointed these out to them, I want to just point out one or two more little things. Also, the council, Nottingham City Council, requested a further exceptional financial support for 25-26 of another £25 million, and for 26-27 of £10 million, claiming that that reflects the direction of travel for the council. Well, if you add them figures up, it comes just to over £100 million worth of asset sales to support the revenue budget. And the council received this money to be able to balance its general fund budget in 23-24 and 24-25. And as you say, the EFS includes an application for capitalisation direction, which the council will need to fund from capital receipts through a programme of asset disposals. You refer to it as a fire sale. I'm going to keep saying that. It's not far off. The repayment of any capitalisation direction should be a top priority and will be a top priority for the use of council capital receipts. But if the council is unable to finance EFS due to insignificant capital receipts being available, then it will need to borrow until asset disposals are delivered. Now, I think I've read that out tonight so people understand a little bit more about what Councillor Cullen was referring to in the paper of a fire sale. And I hope people from the city and others, and I don't just blame the current city leadership, it's been going on for 15, 20 years, but in particular, two decisions have really exacerbated the situation. I'm sure you're aware of both them, one of which, of course, was debt payments of Robin Hood Energy. And this has raised a number of concerns in both the press and media, and that's been, of course, manifested itself into the papers that you'll see set out in the report tonight. And in particular, I draw your attention, if I can, to page 25, which talks about support for option B of 10%, support for option 1E at 19%, and no support for either option at 71%. The City Council never engaged in this process as part of the county-wide consultation process, and therefore when we went to Council we took the decision that we did to not support their bid because it's not been subject to correct and proper scrutiny. It had not been part of a public consultation exercise, and in my opinion, they failed to fulfil the basic criteria for those statutory consultation arrangements. So having said that, I'm not going to dwell on the report tonight. The report is self-explanatory. Other than I say, on page 24, you'll see the distribution of the county-wide survey, which in some areas was absolutely abysmal. When you talk about 4% in Mansfield, 5% in Ashfield and 7% in Newark and Sherwood and Bassetlaw, and even Nottingham City only 10%, I think it says a lot when you look at Broxton at 22%, Rushcliffe at 26%. So having said that, I hope I made it clear tonight for if any of our former colleagues from Nottingham City administration are watching tonight, they are from your own capital strategy, your financial strategy, and it was published in March 2025. So over to you, to members. Are there any questions or comments you wish to ask or to make? And we'll do our best to respond to that. At the back, of course, Mr. Sudlow is there. The Chief Executive, Mr. Dar, is in the front, who have been participating in the officer groups, etc., and discussions with finance officers, with Mr. Martin Payne. And so we will be able to answer any questions, I hope, as appropriate. So I've got Councillor Skinner first, then Councillor Richard McCrae.
I'm really gobsmacked that they describe those assets that they've got rid of as surplus to requirements. I'd quite like to know whether the people who've been deprived of them would agree with that.
The simple answer is no. Look, we all saw this coming, and we've all seen it happening. What happened with schools, for instance, when schools went grant maintained, you know, they took all the assets over. Eastwood lost its sports centre that we built in the Phoenix project. Kimberley lost its sports centre to Kimberley School. It's all about assets, and you're right, Councillor Skinner. Some of the sales that we've seen in particular are pretty scary, and the closure of community centres has had a real adverse impact on the ability, I think, to deliver services to the most vulnerable. But Councillor Richard McCrae next.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I think we should thank Councillor Cullen and also Councillor Carr, because at different levels of governance, they have been sticking up and shouting up for the people of Broxtowe, and that's what we're represented to do, isn't it? I think it's a shame that the MP isn't doing the same. You've only got to look at these figures where it says 71%. The people are against it, and instead of saying, you know, responding to people saying I haven't got an opinion, well, I would have thought if you're an MP, you should have an opinion, and your opinion is of what the people of Broxtowe want. And they've made it very clear that people in Broxtowe don't support this, or a majority of people don't support this. And I think it's sad that she can't stand up in Parliament and shout up for us like our councillors have been doing in other meetings. It needs to be done. You just mentioned about community centres being closed and community facilities, especially things for the youths in the city. I mean, I do want to thank the groups and organisations that do things in the city, because they're working really hard. It's the council, in my opinion, that's letting them down. You've only got to look what happened in Nottingham the other day. My daughter was in Nottingham. I don't know if you've seen the video on the internet. It's had about 250,000 views, which I don't know how my daughter does things like that. I can't even get 20 people to watch mine. But there was a group of kids up on the old Debenhams building. And of course they shouldn't have been up there. It's dangerous. But if they'd got more things to do, they wouldn't be getting involved in things like that. So I think it's a shame on the City Council for letting the youngsters down. We need more for them, not less. But yeah, just thank you to the councillors that have been sticking up for us in Broxtowe. I just think we're being let down by the MP, and it is nice. You know, people need to listen to the residents. That's what we're there for, isn't it?
Yeah, both myself and the Chief Executive were in a meeting on Friday with both MPs that represent Broxtowe area, and as I shall say exactly what I said to them, I will be making the recommendation to council in accordance with the people's wishes. That's why we had a consultation, and it's called democracy. Councillor Greg Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've had a number of discussions about LGR, and of course this will be culminating later on in the month when we have the council meeting dedicated to this. But I think, again, because of the importance of the issue, it is important that we use every opportunity to raise the concerns of the people of Broxtowe, and indeed keep members of the public who may be watching this meeting, or indeed want to engage with their councillors about our views, for instance, of the engagement, and indeed information as it becomes fresh, like the report that we've received tonight. And the report that we have seen tonight is staggering in certain areas, and quite surprising in the way that the report has desperately tried as best it could to try and grasp some kind of positive story outside of the quite damning figures that have transpired in the consultation. Page 24, of course, shows the county-wide consultation figures of 11,483 individuals, and we'll come on to, indeed, on pages later on, from page 29, the executive summary around that. But firstly, of course, it is quite remarkable that the Broxtowe survey of 12,507 on its own outstrips the engagement from the county-wide consultation, which does show the absolute strength of feeling of the people of Broxtowe. And as you go on to the page 25, the table, the graph is I don't think there's any other word for it, quite staggering in the opposition to the proposals that have been set out to the people of Broxtowe, and their absolute overwhelming voice saying that they don't support the way this is being done, or indeed the options before them. I would be, I think it is fair to say that, Juliet Campbell, I think at some point has said that she doesn't want to see the breakup of Broxtowe. I think she has said that, and to be fair to her, I think she said that once. But this poses an existential crisis for her. And she has then been subsequently silent on the proposals, which then propose a breakup of Broxtowe, including, of course, the city option. And it would be nice if, like, for instance, the MP for Gedling, who says that local government reorganisation isn't good for Gedling, or the MP for Rushcliffe says that local government reorganisation isn't good for Rushcliffe. I'm unsure. It would be nice if the MP for Broxtowe came out and recognised, as we have been saying all along, that local government reorganisation, certainly in this guise, isn't good for the people of Broxtowe. And then as you come on to the executive summary, of course, particularly on pages 34 and 35 of the report, that is the kind of clutching at straws attempts by public perspectives to try and claim some kind of credence out of the response. But over half of those engaged at the county one disagree with the proposal to reduce the councils. Over half of the respondents around 1B have expressed concerns, particularly around the boundaries being illogical and unfair. And then options 1A, they try and flip it and say that there's some marginal improvement, that some like that option more than they dislike the other two options, but it is marginal, and it is to a certain extent kind of a marginal position. Paragraph 29, of course, is important because it draws a direct parallel with the consistent worries around it's not just, they say, perceptions about Nottingham City's financial challenges, which, as Councillor Radulovic has just said and just explained through Nottingham City Council's own papers, are not perceptions. They are a reality of the financial problems, and we have voiced throughout this consultation that it is inconceivable that any proposed local government reorganisation won't see some of that burden of financial difficulty falling on the residents of Broxtowe, and indeed other proposed or constituent boroughs under that proposal. And in that sense, we must be pausing not only the potential impacts of that, and I mentioned at the last meeting where we discussed this, we must be where the City Council's own report and assessment of their own options said that there, I think I'm paraphrasing, something like hidden complexities around and uncertain financial understanding of those proposals. I cannot see how it can carry on in its current guise. But again, this is an opportunity to talk about that. We'll have further opportunities to talk around that and make our feelings known. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry that Councillor Mrs Owen and myself were not able to join you all when you were discussing the Nottingham City option. I took her to Istanbul at that time, but I was only offered one camel for her, so I've brought her back. But at least she is full of Eastern promise on her return. It's quite interesting that the discussions that seem to have been engendered on that, of course, as you say, Chairman, a significant response from the City Council. I think basically the City Council are accusing everybody of telling lies about them, which of course is a nonsense. Why would you tell lies about the City Council when the truth is far more devastating and damaging? I always believe in telling the truth about the City Council because you couldn't make it up. You really couldn't make it up. But what this shows us is the return for the Broxtowe survey was actually quite stunning. It was a remarkable level of return for a consultation. I can't recall ever witnessing such a high return. I know there is a degree of cynicism out there amongst social media users in that they're saying, well, it's a done deal anyway. I don't believe in that at all. I think it is a done deal if you don't say what you want and do something to try and achieve it. And that is clearly what we've all been about. The figures for the other areas of the county are not really that surprising because they are not the ones that are going to be as badly affected, as adversely affected as Broxtowe, Rushcliffe or Gedling under the proposals that are being put forward now as possible alternatives. It's Rushcliffe, Broxtowe and Gedling are the ones that are going to suffer. So I would have expected to have seen a much higher return from those areas. But as I say, the Broxtowe one is absolutely stunning. You mentioned about talking to the members of Parliament last week. I know you've sent another letter to both members of Parliament, and I shall be interested in your report, no doubt in your summing up, as to what response you've received from them in support of residents of Broxtowe. I'm comforted in terms of the comments you make about the final recommendations will seek to encapsulate the wishes, the overwhelming wishes of Broxtowe residents, because we have said right from the very beginning we would not do anything, we would not support anything, any proposal that went against the views of Nottingham, of Broxtowe Borough Council residents, despite other political parties not being prepared to do that. So I'm reassured on those lines, and we'll await the final wording, but no doubt if it is along those lines, then we shall be supporting it. It really is a time that this whole process, which is totally discredited, was brought to a conclusion, and not waste any more time and money and get on with delivering services. I think we're all very fed up with it, and it's time to draw a line under it and say, move on. You've got it wrong. You didn't plan from the very beginning. You didn't think it through. You've not even done an estimate or an assessment of what money it would be saved. However, in the event that the government try to railroad this through Parliament, I hope we are already talking about getting appropriate legal advice, which I'm not wanting to be disparaging of the solicitors that we have here, but this needs real expertise, which unfortunately we will have to pay for as a council, but we will need that advice, and if necessary, we go to a judicial review to seek a halt to the whole process, and if they want to do local government reorganisation, they go back and do a proper job and start from square one. Okay, thank you, Chair.
I can confirm that we've already discussed the option of judicial review. That has been discussed among officers and leader at the moment, but that will be made available information on the 27th, 26th and 27th. Any further questions or comments? No? If not, then it's a noted report, duly noted. Item 5.2 tonight is medium-term financial strategy and business strategy for 26-27, set out on pages 139 to 154. Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder, I'll go to first, but before I do, I'll move the recommendation on page 139.
I'll second that.
Councillor Marshall, do you want to introduce the item and then I'll move to Martin Payne?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's two or three things I just want to point out before I bring in Mr. Payne, who's obviously, of course, again, been very diligent in producing this report. The first thing, and this will kind of be for reference and context really, is the top of page 141, which is, again, isn't a surprise to anybody in this meeting or indeed the council. It's a number that has been spoken about for a number of months now, which was fundamentally the outturn, the underspend of 1.402 million on the general fund budget for 24-25, which has been reported through not only through Cabinet but through full council as well. And I just want people to bear that in mind then as we go through the rest of the report, particularly a couple of elements that I just want to draw attention to on page 142, and the relatively large window of the fair funding review kind of assumptions that could happen along the fair funding business rate review, ranging from a potential uplift in core spending power £1.2 million down to a drop in spending power by almost £1 million. Obviously, quite a large window there, and as the outcome of that review takes place, we'll be able to understand that settlement. All I would say is, of course, last year's settlement saw Broxtowe get and lower tier districts get, jointly the worst settlements across the country, with a conceptually, of course, money being siphoned towards the upper tier. So don't hold your breath, but we keep our fingers crossed. And I think the meat of what I just wanted to say then kind of comes onto page 146 and into the business strategy. So what's the sum of all that then? Well, 146 at the bottom of page 146 shows the revised estimate planned deficit of approximately £1.5 million for 25-26, and that will be a planned draw. Let's call it a worst case scenario draw on balances. But as ever, with every medium-term financial strategy, you go over the page to the appendix 3, the business strategy, and there are a number of and a series of both efficiencies, savings, and indeed additional income sources, which in the end total to about, I think it's about 835 grand on page 152. If you net those two off, of course, you see a potential draw on balances of about 700,000. But I make the point, as I did at the outset, that number on the top of page, right on the very top of the first paragraph of the first page of the report, kind of shows the underspend that manifested last year. So whilst these are prudent figures and the best figures we have at the minute, there is, of course, the opportunity to have additional underspend and indeed ensure that our balances remain as healthy as they have done for a number of years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. Mr. Martin Payne.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, just to follow what Councillor Marshall said there. I mean, the biggest risk and uncertainty is in respect to the financial settlement. You know, we're currently unsighted really on the outcome of the fair funding review and the associated business rates reset on business rates and business rates retention. Councillor Marshall's already picked up the sort of, you know, the considerable range in what the settlement figures could be depending on the models that are applied, and ultimately we're not going to know that position until we get the provisional settlement in the weeks before Christmas. So, you know, in that stage we'll budget, we'll plan accordingly. And again, I think in terms of the strategy that's presented again on page 146, you know, we've made assumptions. I think that you'd expect some transitional adjustment arrangements in place. You know, I wouldn't necessarily expect us to benefit by £1 million from the settlement, but likewise, you'd like to think, you know, we wouldn't necessarily drop straight off a cliff face and be £1 million worse off. But again, that's maybe the optimism within me rather than not. So we've made some assumptions in terms of funding that's going to come in with some limited growth in there. Obviously, we are projecting a shortfall, a draw on budgets of about 1.5, 1.6 million this year, but we're having, you know, financial management to date. We're showing good levels of performance and savings are being achieved. So, you know, we're good. You know, we've got a consistent run of achieving budget savings in a year. But again, early indications on next year's. Currently, if we carry on as we are, we could be 2 million adrift in terms of a budget gap. So the proposals we're putting forward in the business strategy, obviously early proposals that will still need developing, but you know, those operational efficiencies, some growth within the services that we provide and increased fees and charges will go some ways towards bridging that gap and mitigating the risk. So obviously the proposals that they will fully develop with the respective managers and with yourselves in coming forward at budget setting. But yeah, the medium-term financial strategy and business strategy are, as we stand at the minute, is presented for approval tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Just before I go to the members of Cabinet, you know, on page 142 when we talk about fairer funded review, it's something that was promised by the previous government, of course, for many years, and parliamentary time was never given to it. I hope it will be a priority for this government as well to bring in a fairer funded review. But the interesting decision will be around the business rates, national and non-domestic business rates. In particular, if you look on page 143, we will be obviously taking a view on whether or not the Nottinghamshire business rates pool will continue. And that's something that will be subject of a careful debate and scrutiny, particularly over the Christmas period when we understand greater what our potential exposure is. So that's something that we'll be looking at very, very carefully. And looking at the new homes bonus in particular, with the new targets, particularly on local plans, and you'll see the figures that have been published. We've got to find, I think, just under another 700 houses on our plan, according to the government. At exactly the same time when they want to cut back on or even scrap new homes bonus. So what incentive is there for anybody to put through the new homes building programme? So there are a number of issues, there are a number of variables and unknowns in this report, but I thank you for putting the paper together. It will require a comprehensive review and business strategy, as we've always done, and I hope, and I still hope, one day we'll get a fair settlement from the government. We certainly never got one for the previous 14 years from 2010 to 2024. It would be great if we would be given that fair funded review. So any questions or comments further? Councillor Owen?
Yes, it'd be good if we return to the same level of funding from government that we did have under the Conservative government, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. Those were the good old days, and now we're no longer there. But I wanted to pick up just one or 2 points, minor points at this stage. On page 149, we've got the garden waste income.
Yeah.
And the scheme has seen a reduction in subscribers. Well, that's not surprising. We said that would be the case when you put the charges up. We don't know how many. It doesn't tell us what the reduction is. And now additional income will be generated by increasing service users, with the price of the first bin being frozen. Good. Well, that's a step in the right direction. But you're then going to generate further income by increasing the price of each additional bin. If putting the price up for the first bin results in a tail off of usage, a decrease in usage, so that you've got to freeze the price, why can you be so confident that you are going to get much additional revenue excuse me, by putting up the price of additional bins? Surely far better simply to freeze the prices. Going on to page 150, staffing efficiencies. An interesting statement there. Leveraging technology with new systems and software, taking advantage of vacancies to restructure and save money, managing vacancies, reducing administration. Well, that's always a good one, isn't it? You're sounding a bit like Nigel Farage there. You're going to reduce administration costs and reduce reliance on more expensive agency staff. Well, that's fair enough if you can do it. Where possible, the council will aim to bring together and consolidate services under fewer senior managers where turnover allows, and services can be improved. What you're saying is you're waiting for some people to retire, move on, before you can do the efficiencies and the restructuring that you want to do. That's what it says here. So how long are we likely to be delayed in getting these efficiencies? Because people may not want to move on in the way that you want them to move on. On page 152, we've got others. We've got something in red there. Others. Anything out of the following? I don't know what all that means. Licensing income. Haven't you made up your mind about that yet? Is that something that's got to be thought about? Reduced overtime. Mayor's chauffeur. Right. And any others? So you're up for ideas, are you? Yeah. I thought you might be. Yeah. Come on. And then, of course, our old favourite car parking income. No significant fee increases are proposed. Well, jolly good job they're not. But it will be interesting to see at the time of the budget what the usage of the car parks has been over the whole year compared with what it had been the previous in the previous years before the additional charging was put on, because I suspect that there will have been a significant reduction. Well, we know there's been a significant reduction in the usage of car parks. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? No. If not, then I'll revert to the recommendation on page 139, which has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? That's unanimously agreed. 5.3 capital programme, capital budget variations on pages 155 to 160. The recommendation now has to resolve the budget variations set out be approved. I move that from the chair.
I'll second that, Chair.
Over to you, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you. Again, a regular report to Cabinet. Probably the tables on 157 and 159 are the most important, but just an updating of the approved budget and previous brought forward budgets on disabled facility grants. But on the capital works schemes on page 159, you see a fluctuation. Some have gone down significantly on revised budget, some have gone up significantly on revised budget. I did try and do a very quick totalisation of that table. There isn't one, but I think broadly speaking, it's almost neutral in terms of the variance between the approved and the revised budgets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Mr. Payne?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a good tidying up exercise, I think, for where we are with the current capital programme. Again, disabled facilities grants, we've had the budget figure confirmed. Like I say, through the capital works, just a chance to sort of reprioritise the programme, and then with the craft workshops as well. Just the extra work required and overstretching the budget on that particular area, but we're able to cover that off by moving some budget from other schemes which won't be fully required. So yeah, nothing further there, but again, happy to sort of recommend that forward.
I think it's fair to say it reflects a greater need in certain areas to provide additional resources as we've continued to do the capital works programme, maintenance programme. Many projects slip out of the need to continue, and others take immediate priority. You'll notice particularly on energy efficiency works and heater replacement and boiler replacements, has seen a significant increase in the need to modernise what we do for fuel efficiency and energy saving and cost benefits for residents. Any further questions or comments? If not, we're asked to approve the budget variations as set out. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? So, agreed. Yeah, sorry. Now I'm moving on to item, should be 5.4, which is the Freeman and Alderman ceremony. I'm sorry this was omitted from your papers by mistake, which I'll take responsibility for. But on page 3, you'll see we're asked to resolve tonight that we bring forward the Honorary Freeman and Alderman of the Borough to take place a special meeting to be held on the 28th of January. And assuming that we have relatively few nominations, I think we've got quite a few, but we have got some people that's they've been put forward for outstanding contributions. The budget and options are set out in options Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. But we're hoping to do the whole process under Appendix 1, and that will enable people to receive significant recognition for the contributions they make to the community of Broxtowe. So we're asked to resolve tonight the official admittance of the Honourary Freeman take place on the special meeting of the Council to be held on the 28th of July 2026, and now I've formally moved that cost option 1. Should that not be proved to be possible, then we'll come back to you with a further report for any other options. I'll move that from the chair.
Yeah, I second that, Chair. I'd just add, you know, this is a very good example, isn't it, of getting the balance right between savings and costs that Councillor Owen's just been looking at in the business strategy, or as part of the MTFS, and plus all set against getting the balance right of affording the right amount of ceremony and how we do these kind of procedures for proposed Freeman and Aldermen of the borough as well. But as you can see from the options, there is a significant difference between the two options presented. I've had a word with the civic team, and we've discussed this at length, and we think we can make this facility a kind of like a really appropriate facility to hold the ceremony. It just goes to show. I just wish the Conservatives have never sold off the town hall, which of course could have served. It was almost like a fire sale of assets. So but we will make the very best of this under option 1. But as the leader says, if it don't quite work out, we'll come back and present updated proposals. So I support option 1 as well.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments, Councillor McCrae?
Yeah, no, I 100% support option 1, and I've been to a few of these events. They're really nice, and I think it's nice that as a council we get to thank people out there in the community that may not get the thanks, because there's a lot of people in Broxtowe working really hard, and many of them people don't know about. So when they come out at these events and we find out who they are, and we're able to just show a small token of our appreciation for what they do on behalf of the people of Broxtowe, it's really good, isn't it? So yeah, I'm more than happy to support option one, and I look forward to seeing who wins the awards as well.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? If not, then the recommendation in option one's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? That is unanimously agreed. Moving on to section 6 then tonight, which is the asset management, economic development and asset management. It's the asset management strategy, a full document on pages 161 to pages 224. And I'll move the recommendation to approve the asset management strategy from the chair.
I'll second that.
I'll go straight to Mr. Darren Ibel
Great,
tonight.
thank you through you, Chair. Yes, members will have seen this report in a rather diluted summary that we brought to Cabinet earlier in the year. It is quite a large document, as you'll see, but it's been produced in consultation with a number of elected members, colleagues and customers. It's also had an endorsement from the Regulator of Social Housing, as was presented as part of our audit, which I'm thankful to say has ended today. And it seeks over the next 5 years to map out how the council will manage its social housing stock in line with the council's corporate priority for housing, which is to provide a good quality home for everyone, and also meet the two key objectives within the corporate plan, which are to build more homes more quickly and use underused and derelict land within the borough, and to invest in our current stock to make sure it's safe and more energy efficient and future proofed for our customers. I know you've all seen a summary of it, which I thought was quite a nice bite-sized sort of review of it, really. But I'll sort of come back with any questions. Happy to take any questions or queries on the full document.
Thank you very much for that. The obviously the document is a large document to say the least. And it says our two key objectives in the corporate plan. We talk about building more houses more quickly and invest in our homes. We're also looking to invest more and more in development of housing that meets people's particular needs. You may not have noticed it, but on the previous document, we talked about things like disabled facilities grant, for instance. It's mentioned in there. Last year, I think it's £1,700,000 in Broxtowe alone. And one of my arguments I always used to make at the board when I was on the MCA board was the fact that we are spending over £1 billion a year nationally modernising homes for people with more complex and medical needs. And I simply used to ask the question, why don't we do that from the outset? You know, they're trying to retrofit a house for specific disability needs is incredibly expensive, incredibly difficult, and more often than not it meets with what I call an offer job. And so when I looked at and when we went to look at the Fishpond Cottage, for instance, and looked at the disabled bungalow there, and you see that Broxtowe are already building the next generation of disabled bungalows. And we don't pretend that that's perfect. What we are saying, though, it's a damn sight better than I've seen anybody else ever build one. But it's not something for us to rest on our laurels. People are living with more and more complex medical conditions, complex treatment and complex needs, and that needs to be part of our asset strategy as well from the outset. So when we do build homes, we need to build them to what the social and economic needs of an area are, particularly the social needs to meet that shortfall. Otherwise, as a country, we're spending billions on adapting properties that needed doing from the outset. So that's my only comment on asset management, but it is a long document. I've got Chris as my understudy now, receiving monthly training. I'm sure by Christmas you'll have a complete headache. And I hope that by May next year, you know, you'll see the complexities that we try to achieve and be able to help build a better framework. The report has been before to Cabinet. This is an updated version, so I hope questions that you have will be relative to not the whole document, but to this particular updated version. But are there any questions or comments? Councillor Skinner?
I keep saying this, but the lovely houses that we have in Chilwell have made such a difference to the lives of people there, because I know that they're allocated on the most needy, and just to have, you know, the right number of bedrooms just changes the whole dynamic of the family and relieves all the tension and the pressure that they were under, which, well, not all of it, but makes life easier. And it's just so lovely to see.
Councillor Bunn?
Yeah, I mean, sort of following on from what Councillor Skinner's just said, I wanted to say how it's, you know, I wanted to thank the officers for the amount of work that went into this, and also thank everyone on policy working group that had several quite large discussions on it. I think this is really important strategy. It's really important to what we do. We all know that affordable council houses that are built in a way that is suitable for the future are essential for people's lives, essential for having a good quality of life, and that is what's set out in here is our ambition to be added to our council housing stock so people can be on affordable rents. We've got some of the lowest rents in the country in Broxtowe, and that's what we aim to be keeping. But not only that, but also that the houses are good quality, that we're addressing the fact that, you know, too many houses across the country are still being built in the same way that we've been building houses for hundreds of years. We need to be building in a way that where they're properly insulated and they're ready for you know, colder, wetter winters and hotter summers, and that's also laid out in here. We talked about the importance of adapting homes for disability, but it's also about adapting homes for the conditions that we're going to be living in the future to come, and there's sections on that in here. And I just want to say, like I say, it's a really fantastic report, and I just want to say thank you to all the officers for all the work that they've done on putting this together. And now the next challenge is going to be making sure that we stick to this and we deliver it, because that's what our residents need. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? Sorry, I beg your pardon, Chris.
Oh, so thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I had one of these training sessions the other week, and we were with Darren, and we were going over the bringing up the energy efficiency rating on a lot of our properties and the amount of money that we were looking to invest in that to bring the properties we've got that are under remember the acronym now, EPC band rating C, under band rating C, and bringing them up to that standard, which will obviously help future-proof some of those properties so that they're better equipped for some of the energy needs during those colder winters, and that will obviously have a positive effect on the household income for the household expenditure for the families that are living in our properties.
Thank you very much, yeah. The question, Councillor Cullen?
Thank you, Leader. I want to say that I'm really pleased with this. I'm really proud of it. Myself and my colleagues in this room in the previous 2 elections stood on a manifesto commitment to build more affordable council houses for the residents of Broxtowe. And those of us that were here 2 elections ago will remember that when we took over the administration, albeit with the help of the Lib Dems from the previous Conservative administration, we were told that it would be possible that we could build 30 houses in 10 years. And the fierce arguments that were had at the time about the lack of ambition and the need to meet our manifesto commitments to provide for the people of Broxtowe. So I'm really excited to see on page 173 that we're now, you know, intending to build 250 new homes in 5 years, meaning 500 in 10 years, which is about what we said we ought to be able to do at that time. I'm proud that we're meeting our manifesto commitments, and I think this is a real, you know, to be delivering houses that are safe, that are what people need, that are homes fit for modern lives is a tremendous achievement, and I just wanted to bring that to people's attention.
Well, thank you very much. I do drive asset management mad though, you know.
Well, good.
It's my job. Chancellor Vanessa Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't got much to add to what everyone has already said, but I just think it's I'm really pleased to see this come through to Cabinet. It's obviously had a lot of work gone into it, a lot of consultation. It's gone through policy. Some of our tenants have had a look at it as well and given their input, which has been really valuable. And it just sort of it kind of completes the picture, if you like. It's, you know, we have a lot of policies regarding housing management, repairs, how we deliver those services, and then having this asset management strategy to sit alongside it to look at, you know, how we keep our stock in good condition and how we add to it. It just sort of brings all of that together nicely. Now we've got everything in place to deliver what we said we were going to deliver. So very happy to support it.
Thank you very much for that. Any closing comments?
Yeah, just to say again, thank you to everybody in the room who contributed. It was a very well consulted document, and Councillor Barbara Carr actually mentioned that the some of the language within the document was probably not the usual sort of language that we would use in a council document. And one bit she quite liked was the fact that we said it wasn't a document just to sit on a dusty shelf, and actually the social housing regulator quite liked that as well. So I think again, the document actually does give the passion and the real drive as an authority that we've got to develop more homes, but also to maintain homes within our borough for the benefit of our residents. So just want to say thank you for everyone who contributed, and my esteemed colleague on my left here around development, who in conjunction with members of this cabinet, but also with Zulf as well, who have driven the development regime over the last 3 years, building on all the work that was previously done by Peter, is a real credit. So I'd just like to mention that.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Any further questions or comments? If not, then the updated report's been moved to second. All those in favour? And that's unanimously agreed. Next we come on to a piece of very good news. On pages 225 to 230, it's a modernisation team's apprentice recruitment.
Thank you through you, Chair. I've been quite looking forward to this one. It's been a bit of a piece of work. So you've got a report which is looking to bring a further apprentice into the asset management and development team, and members will be aware of the success that Broxton Borough Council have had over the years in bringing apprentices into the council. We've had 22 apprentices brought through the local authority since the apprenticeship levy was introduced in 2017, and a lot of what Martin was taught and Greg were talking about with the medium term business plan around recruitment, sort of pressures that we have and the costs, especially around expensive temporary agency staff, meaning that local authorities, including Broxton Borough Council, are facing a really unprecedented challenge when it comes to recruitment and a skill shortage, which we're well aware of across the UK. This report is a little bit different though, because as a council we've been very, very good at looking at groups of people who maybe have been omitted or have been discarded from the usual sort of social inclusion. Ex-military have been something that I know has been previously discussed, and I know you're very keen on that, but ex-offenders are a group of people that often have been set aside, and we have been working over the last 10 months supported by Ruth and recently by Zulf, in terms of having a look at this group of people to see if there are any opportunities for us to access what is a rather large group of people. 1 in 4 people in the UK have a current criminal conviction or a spent criminal conviction, and seeing whether or not we might be able to access that group of people to look at where we've got hard to fill vacancies. Certainly within asset management and development, we have a huge issue in terms of quantity surveying staff, project management staff, and I know planning have especially a lot of pressures on them. I think 90% of local authorities in the UK have suggested their planning departments are really stretched. And just to give you a couple of stats, Nottingham City Council last year spent £750,000 solely on asset management agency staff. So they invested, I'm a city council taxpayer, and that for me is not a sustainable way of using council tax money, and I don't think it's particularly responsible. So we've got to find as local authorities a better way of doing this. Now, I attended an event with all 9 local authorities in Nottinghamshire last Friday at HMP Ramsby, which is at Retford, which is a Cat D prison. And all of 9 local authorities, led by Broxtowe and Bassetlaw, have agreed to sign up to a charter which will commit local authorities to offer employment and training opportunities to ex-offenders wherever possible. And our recruitment policy was changed earlier in the year, in the summer, to reflect that, along with people like ex-military and young people who have neither employment or educate or in any sort of employment or education settings at this moment in time. So this is really Broxtowe taking the lead in terms of this agenda, which is a national issue. It is, yes, okay, it is about making sure people that commit crime but do their sentences, but we ought not, and prison does confine people, but it should not define people. And there are a lot of people within prison who on another day would not be there. There are people who should be there and probably will never be employed ever again, but there are a huge amount of people with a huge amount of potential who have made a mistake. And as human beings, we've all made mistakes in this room. Some of us have made bigger ones than others, and some of us got caught. And it's not about discarding people. It's about giving people maybe not even a second chance, maybe a first chance. Maybe people have been born into a circumstance that has led them into this sort of world. And I think local authorities should play a far greater part in dealing with what is a huge issue that costs this country £18 billion a year. That's what reoffending costs the government every year. And I think I'm very proud to say that Broxtowe Borough Council are taking a lead in Nottinghamshire. By all 9 local authorities coming together, that is the first county, if we can get it to work, in the whole of England and Wales that will take a combined approach in this area. And I'm really proud that we are moving forward with we've done a lot of talking, we now need to do some of the doing. And this paper is proposing that we look to bring in an ex-offender on licence from HMP Sudbury into the council, employed within the asset management and development department, to start to demonstrate that this is a workable solution, both in terms of people and society, but also in terms of our own authority and how we recruit people sustainably going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. A very comprehensive report, and I'm delighted to have been able to assist in the programme in some small way. You're right. Looking at statistics that we've just drawn together, in Eastwood St Mary's ward, 35% of all school leavers leave with no education, qualifications or training. And that leads to an upsurge, 21% higher crime than the national average in Eastwood alone. And consequently, there has to be a better solution than simply confining people to become professional criminals. And what you think you've done here is a very bold and courageous step, and I applaud you for it. And I'll support you 100%, and I hope my colleagues on Cabinet tonight will do the same. Well, the recommendation on page 225 is set out before you tonight. I'll formally move that.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments? Sorry, I've got Chris Carr first, then Richard McCrae.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to say how great it is that we are making this investment in future skills of members of employees of this council, but I also think it's great that we are looking to give an ex-offender a chance in coming back into society. I think what we tend to do with the justice system is focus way too much on the punishment side of things and not enough on the rehabilitation side of things, and I think this is a good step in that direction.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor McCrae?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is probably the best thing I've seen on the agenda tonight, actually, and looking out for ex-offenders. It is important. We've heard the officer at the back of the room say several times that he's proud of this work. I think we should actually be proud of the officers as well that's involved in this. We've heard that the City Council, what I would say, is wasting money on taking in agency staff. And I know there's some great agency staff out there. I'm not picking on the individual person, but there's better ways they could do it. And again, it's showing what a great council we are. This one item alone on this agenda tonight shows what a caring council we are. And, you know, more reason to keep Broxtowe, because we're leading the way on this, aren't we? And if more places took on apprenticeships, and if more places took on ex-offenders, wouldn't the world be a lot better place? And, you know, we're leading from the front in Broxtowe, aren't we? So, yeah, the officer says he's proud of this council. I'm proud of the work that the officer's done, and I'm sure others are as well. So thank you for all of it. It's really good.
Well, thank you for your comments. Councillor Marshall and then Councillor Bond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I echo the comments of Councillor Carr and Councillor McRae. An important part of this item on the agenda is now conversion. You cannot speak coherently or expertly like Mr. Eyeball has just spoken without having the commitment to make this happen now. So I've got complete confidence now, after the way that this report has been presented, that not only are you are not being instructed or dragged to do this, that you are leading on this, and that's just really assuring to councillors as well, because it now fills us with confidence that we can convert this and extend this and build on this. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comments, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Bond.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Marshall's taken one of the points I want to make, that as well as this being a really good thing, it's also really good to hear from officers that are so passionate about delivering and making sure that this is done and it is a success, which is really important to these things working. I just want to say that I'm really pleased to see this on here. I used to run a food bank locally, and one of the most depressing times I ever had when I did that was when I got a message from someone we've been supporting saying, thanks for everything you've done, you've been brilliant, I'm really grateful for everything, but I just wanted to let you know I'm going back into prison now because I just can't handle, I've just not got options and I'm really struggling, and so that's the only thing I can see for myself. And it was heartbreaking. It was one of the most horrible things that I've ever had to deal with, and so it's really nice to see that we're giving someone an option to support with that. It's also, I think, demonstrative of what we try and do as a council, where we try and, work with people and support them to, give them that second chance and to get them back into work and to get them back into being part of society. I strongly believe that most people do want to have that sort of involvement, that to have those opportunities. They don't want to be, sat around not doing much. They want to have chances like this, and I think this really can make a difference. And it's also instrumental because the other thing I want to mention is one of the committees I sit on is the Skills and Employability EMCA committee, where we look at targets for the East Midlands region around employability and what we're trying to do there as a much wider region. And one of the things I talked about at the last meeting was the importance of linking up the fact that we've got councils who are really, collectively across the area, large employers, and they have a lot of job opportunities within them. And then we have a challenge as a region where we want to get people into employment, and making sure that we leverage that and we are working with those councils and seeing how they are working with people who are, in need, who are not in education, employment and training, and getting them into work. And it's really nice to see Broxtowe, as I say, leading the way, demonstrating how councils can do that. And I want to see more of this, and I'm going to make sure that I take this forward into that and sort of show other people some of the stuff that we're doing. This is an example of it, and try and make sure that happens more across the region, so it's not just one thing and one council that's happening, but that this is something that hopefully we become known for in East Midlands region, and getting a really good reputation for working with people and getting them that second chance. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an interesting statistic that currently we've got 86,000 people confined in prison at the moment, and whilst people will say one, it's a step in the right direction, and it's a damn sight more than most authorities will ever do. But just one issue that has been raised, and again I thank Darren and his team for having the courage and commitment to do this. When we talk about the opportunities that's sadly lacking for young people, we all think of a sports pitch here or a play facility there. It's not just about that, it's about employment, it's about feeling, it's about that belonging, and belonging to society, the community, and that you can make a difference, and you can work for the betterment of yourself and for your community. So I applaud that. And you're right, you raise the issue of agencies. Somebody sitting at the back will tell you I'm not very keen on employing agency staff. I would much sooner have our own staff. And Emma's nodding quite right. We just recently had this conversation again. It's all about giving people an opportunity. So I thank you all. I must admit, we were slightly nervous about bringing this report to Cabinet tonight, only on the grounds that you never know. To be first is a quantum leap, but we are the first authority that's done this in the area. We've now, thanks to Darren and his team, made that leap, and thank you all for your kind words and your support. And Darren, take message back from Cabinet tonight. Thank you to you and your team, and I hope you make a big success of it and demonstrate that Broxtowe is leading the way yet again.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say thank you to everyone who's. I was slightly nervous to come and talk about it, but also really pleased to talk about it and really proud of this authority for supporting it, and Ruth and Zulf have been, without their support, we wouldn't have got this far. So, and I thank them. Just to add some context, I've been working within prisons now for 2 years, both in my previous role at Bassett Law, and I've been able to take that forward at Broxtowe, and spending time on the Employment Advisory Board at Ramby, of which I chair that now. And we've built some excellent links with prisons around the area locally. And one of the things we've sat down and talked to all local authorities in this region is about trying to better understand the prison environment and the prison sector. A lot of us, thankfully, have never been in that environment, and a lot of people come because it's very interesting and it's very, it's an experience. But actually, to sit down and listen to people's stories and to get that context around why people have found themselves calling prison a home is so important. A lot of people, suffer with that little box that we put on application forms that's saying, "Have you got any previous convictions?" and disregard those people. And I'm really proud that this local authority is leading the way in Nottinghamshire, and that members have been so positive about that approach. So I just want to say thank you for all your comments.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Very heartfelt. Don, do you want to come back?
Thanks, Joe. Just say one thing. It's quite interesting to hear at an interview someone stating that that's something they'd like to do. And here we are 14 months later, maybe a bit sooner than that, it's happening. That's something that it was Greg, myself and Vanessa that were at that interview. So, yeah, nice to see.
Yes, thank you very much. Well done. Any further questions or comments? If not, then I'll move straight to vote. Please show clearly then. All those who support the recommendation on page 225, that's unanimously agreed, and for the record, we'll note that that is unanimous. Item 7 then tonight is the environment and climate change, and first one tonight is the blue-green infrastructure strategy on pages 231 to 386. I'll go straight to the cabinet member first. If, Ellen, if you'd like to say a few words, and then I'll.
I would. It's been such good stuff tonight. It's really hard to compete, isn't it? I mean, there's been such good stuff tonight. It's hard to compete with that. But this is a beautiful document. It's so well laid out, and it's so much effort has gone into it, and so much consultation has been done. We've had strategies for Greenland and for our water before, but this document is putting those together, and that is really the importance of it. It's just like in the past we had experts looking at plants and we had experts looking at animals, and then suddenly, lo and behold, you realise that you've got to work together, and it's the balance and the relationship between all those things that matter. And we've come a long way. Well, we've gone round in a circle really, because we thought we were very clever when we straightened the rivers out and piped everything underground, and we realised that the water serves us better if it does its own meandering like it did naturally. And now that we've got so much flooding around and the potential to flood, this mitigates against that if you allow those bends to go back into the rivers and the animals that live and help you do that. And hopefully we'll be able to daylight some of those waters that have been piped underground and let them out again, because people have they have nice memories of streams and things when they used to catch tadpoles and stuff, and they don't have the same feeling for a pipe under the ground. I hope also that people won't just throw this away at the end or have it shredded, because it's a lovely document, and we should be referring to it. And if you don't want to do that, I think it would be good if we could collect them out, or somebody could help get them out of your packs if you're discarding them, because we have a lot of environment groups in Broxtowe, a lot of green groups who would quite like to have a paper copy of this. I mean, a lot of them avoid paper, but there's still a lot of people who like paper. And rather than throw it away, hand it in at the end or give it away to somebody. And now over to Emma.
Thank you very much for that. Before I move on to Evan, the recommendation on page 231 is to approve the adoption of our blue and green infrastructure strategy for 25 to 2030. I'll move that from the chair. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Skinner. This refreshed green infrastructure strategy marks a culmination of nearly a year's worth of work, or over a year's worth of work actually. This has been a comprehensive and collaborative process shaped by extensive engagement with stakeholders, public and members. Following Cabinet approval in March 2024, we initiated a full refresh of the original 2015-2030 strategy. Further approval in June of this year enabled a 6-week public consultation which built on the earlier engagement through 4 workshops and a dedicated focus group. In addition, there's been a comprehensive review by the Policy Overview and Working Group in October, which has been extremely valuable, and their feedback has helped to refine several aspects of the strategy, and this is detailed in section 5 of the report. This revised strategy is a key part of delivering our corporate priority to protect the environment for the future, and it aligns closely with our climate change and green future strategy. Now, it's structured around 4 key themes of Natural England's green and infrastructure framework, and crucially our blue infrastructure, that's our rivers, canals and wetlands, and it is now fully embedded across all themes, reflecting our integrated approach to sustainability and resilience. The document itself is a significant improvement on the original one. It's clearer, more accessible and highly practical. It includes a new planning checklist developed with input from planning to support decision making and guide section 106 spending. It also introduces a spatial approach with 6 blue-green infrastructure zones across 25 corridors, 2 primary and 23 secondary, and these are across the borough. Now, looking ahead, the 5-year action plan will be broken down into annual targets, and this will mirror our delivery model of our climate change and green future strategy. These actions are going to be costed and will be followed by a prioritisation exercise and assessed through cost-benefit analysis to ensure that delivery is based not only on affordability, but on the potential environmental and community benefits. We may return to Cabinet in due course to seek support for the delivery of key projects. This is a strong delivery-focused strategy and essential tool for the Council, our partners and the Borough. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that. And before I just go out, just stress how important this document is for the future, for the quality of the environment that we all enjoy, particularly a figure that I've always quoted to people on a regular basis, that there was a time in my lifetime when the River Erewash was the most polluted river in England. And as a consequence of that, seeing a blue and green infrastructure come together is something that really is, it does warm the heart. But I won't see anybody's fun. But are there any questions or comments to Emma? Councillor McRae first.
Yeah, just a quick one. I was quite lucky actually to be invited to a meeting on Boundary Brook. I think it was last week. I can't remember. It goes by that quick. And to see the work that I'm sure a lot of it's the county council, but some of it's some of our officers.
I beg your pardon?
No, some of our officers were there and some of the county officers were there. Let me finish. I'm sure the best part was what Broxtowe did. It looks really good, and I really hope that if we do get a lot of rain, it makes a difference. But it was really nice to see, as someone mentioned earlier, not just a straight line, what it used to be, but some wavy bits in it. I remember in Stapleford, growing up there, there was brooks, dikes, whatever you call them nowadays, all over the place, and some of them have just been changed. Some of them, lots of tree lines were put in there to I guess it's to soak up the water. But to see the work that's been done up there, and when the officers from Broxtowe that was talking, they was very passionate about what they're doing, And what they was explaining to us, because at the minute it's just lots of mud and water, but I know when all the plants and flowers and everything come through, it's going to look really good. And it was interesting to see the county councillors turn up to have the photos taken. But the work that the officers from Broxton Borough Council have done is absolutely amazing, and they need to be thanked for that. And yeah, time will tell, but it does look a lot better than it did. And they explained everything to us in detail. Again, that was the officers from Broxton that did that. It was really nice to go along and see the work they've done. So I'm lucky that we saw that in Broxton, and hopefully it's done in other areas. I'm sure it will be. But again, Broxton leading the way, isn't it?
Always. Do you want to come back on that? I know they posed for the photos, but it was your team that did all the work. Yeah, I know about it. Don't worry.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So this was a partnership programme in conjunction with Nottinghamshire County Council, but our officers have been absolutely key in delivery, and there's a lot more work that the officers will be undertaking to do this. This project is quite unique in the terms of not only will it mitigate against flooding in that area, it will also help to enhance biodiversity. So a real key project. And at the moment, yes, it does look very muddy, but it will be seeded. In a year's time, that's going to be looking something very special.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Sorry, Councillor Skinner first.
I just forgot to say that the developers checklist there is very handy as well, and Councillor Jeremiah is very interested in that as chair of the planning committee, so that will be a useful part of the document that we can use as well.
Just before bringing in, I cannot stress enough the importance of having a collaborative and cooperative approach between not just the environment group, but planning and structural planning and core plans and strategic plans. It is an inextricable link, and I think it's something that when I look around the whole of the planning system across the region, I mean, as you know, I chair JPAB for the South Nottinghamshire region, about the lack of cohesive strategy when it comes to having this inextricable link between the need to provide and quality of environment as well as just provide housing. So it's imperative that we have that link. And you're right, Section 106 more and more, and by BNG and recycling credit should always be targeted at improving the quality and the standard of the environment and the cleanliness of water in particular. I mean, probably, are we on live stream? Yeah, probably jailing Arthur Seven Trent executive wouldn't be a step too far, I think. For stating what they've done to our waters. But Councillor Pringle.
Thanks, Chair. I was fortunate with one of the Trowell Parish councillors to visit that site about, I think it was about 4 weeks ago now, with Chris Riley from the council. Very pleased to see it because it's something that I've been sort of chasing for quite a few years now, and to see it come to fruition is very, very good. And we've had lots of comments from people who see it as it is now. One resident from the Field Farm estate was very concerned about it because he said that what you've done, they've removed the brook. And I said, well, no, they haven't removed the brook. What they've done is they've repositioned that lower bit of the brook so that what it'll do is it will minimise flooding further down in Trowell. And he was concerned because it's just a sea of mud. And I think, as Richard said there, once that's all planted and all the bits and pieces that Chris Riley's talking about that he's going to be putting in there, I think it will be a real asset to us. And good to see something that's happened that will benefit residents of both Trowell and Stapleford to a great extent. So.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to a big thank you to Emma and the team as well for producing what is again another excellent report on tonight's agenda. Again, we're spending a lot of time on this item alongside the housing one, which are key priority and policy initiatives for us as an authority, which, as Councillor Teresa Cullen mentioned earlier, we make big noises about whenever we're putting ourselves before the electorate around what our priorities are. So this is of course important to us because it can demonstrate to people across Broxtowe that we're doing what we say we are going to do. And I guess the other part of that is how I don't know whether, you know, Millen says he drives Mr. Eyeball crazy. You know about, and he makes his life a pain sometimes. How good is it, Emma, that we're already now saying how brilliant your report is, but I'm interested in pages 287 onwards, and particularly page 323, how we can now start talking about delivery, converting these, and opportunities. And that will be no small task, as you kind of point out on page 322, as some of the potential kind of costs around some of these schemes. But I am very interested in, alongside Councillor Skinner, about how we prioritise these, how we sequence these, and how we can maximise, I guess, both the sources of partnership working that you set out, and the free and planning delivery mechanisms, whether that's still or 106, and we should be bearing that in mind in terms of perhaps trying to signal to Mr. Dawson about where we may expect to see some of that funding being delivered to support this other key arm of what we're trying to do as an authority as well. But that will come when we get more information and more detail, as you've set out, Emma, around the prioritisation and more detailed costs. But it's brilliant.
I have set them some rather large challenges, in particular. Emma's just smiling at me now. Some rather large challenges to bring forward, which I hope will form part of our infrastructure. And one day we may well see this green corridor from Stapleford right the way down to Attenborough. And I'm convinced that it will happen in the next few years. So these are things we look forward to. But is there anything you wish to cover in closing?
Just to come back on Councillor Marshall's point, I mean, we will be reporting on the actions very similar to the Climate Change and Green Future. So where that has got a carbon management plan, we bring that every year. Yeah. This will be something that we will do something very similar with, because it is such, as you've all highlighted, it's such a key document for us as a council and the borough. So and we will be bringing that back in terms of prioritisation, costings, cost benefit. So we're bringing that up back so it's very transparent to members in terms of the direction of travel.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? If not, the recommendation on page 231 has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Again, that is unanimously agreed. And final item on this agenda tonight, this particular part of the agenda, is the sanctuary scheme policy on pages 387 to pages 426. The recommendation tonight is to resolve the sanctuary scheme policy be approved. I move that from the chair.
I'll second that.
Councillor Bunn, would you like to introduce the item before I bring in Louise Hawley?
Yeah, sure.
So, Louise Clark. Is it Hawley? Oh. Thanks.
So, so I'm happy to introduce them. So, sanctuary scheme policy is a really important policy that we have as a council, and basically what it does is for victims of domestic abuse, it allows us to introduce adjustments and things to the houses to allow them to stay in place. It's not always, we do offer with some people to resettle them in other parts of the borough where that's appropriate, but for some people that's not what's needed, and they need to stay in the area where they are. And the things that we're able to do through referrals to this scheme enable people, to have additional peace of mind to stay in their homes to do it. I think, it's a really important document. I think the unfortunate bit about it is on page 388, which talks about the increase in referrals that we've had to this scheme, which is partly due to the increase in the cost of the work that are done, but also, unfortunately, to an increasing amount of requests to it. And I just want to draw attention to this because I think it's part of there's a wider problem going on here that I think is worth just mentioning. The fact that these are the people that are being referred to this. We do this in partnership with a wide number of other organisations, and like I say, the support given through the scheme is vital. But the increase in support here isn't just due to an increase in domestic abuse in general. It's also because of the fact that other resources and other support mechanisms that the groups and survivors rely upon are being stripped away. So we're seeing more people being referred through to this scheme because other systems that used to exist that would support these victims are going away. And I I think that's such a really important thing that I want to draw attention to in my introduction to this, because, like I say, it's very easy to look at this and be like, oh, okay, you know, increasing cost there, let's address that. But I just want to make sure that I talk about that wider issue that's going on here. We've talked before at council about, you know, the restriction in county council funding to various schemes, the reduction in UK SPF that we get for this council, which is money that we use to support groups like Broxtowe Women's Project, the work being done by a number of excellent charities across the borough who work with these victims, and also there's just in general in this country sort of the reduction in funding schemes available to a lot of like charities and local government to do work like this, to work with these people. This is one of the schemes that we still maintain, and I'm really pleased about that. But I think it's an absolute travesty the amount of other support that is being stripped away, so that minimal things like this, you know, are all that's being left. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that, because although, you know, it's really important, and like I say, there is still fantastic work being done across Broxtowe with some brilliant organisations working with it. It is becoming harder and harder for them to do that work, even as the need for it increases, unfortunately. Thank you.
Very much so. Bruce?
Yes, the sanctuary scheme, it does allow people to remain in their own homes rather than have to move when they are a victim of domestic abuse. And the way it does that is to create a safe space inside the property where the victim can be safeguarded for long enough for the police to arrive. That's its purpose. So as long as the alterations that we're making to the property allow enough minutes for the police to arrive, then the sanctuary scheme has fulfilled its purpose. And that's why we felt that with the increase in costs and us needing to reduce those in some way to be able to ensure that the scheme can run for the rest of the year, and that applicants towards the end of the year don't end up not being able to access the scheme, that we felt that some of the things that we provided under the scheme currently we could remove, and it wouldn't actually change fundamentally that safe space for those amount of minutes. There's some things that I want to draw your attention to. I have got the most up-to-date costs as of today and the number of applications. And as of today, we've had 51 applications since the beginning of April this year, which was compared to 40 in the whole of last year. And the current spend committed is £62,645 compared to just over 50,000 in the whole of last year. So it is going up a significant
It's going up
amount.
exponentially.
Yeah. The items that we have removed from the scheme are mentioned in the Appendix 1, which is a change table, and that is to remove the installation and repair of fences and gates, because they don't actually materially affect the inside of the property, which is a safe space. It may give a feeling of more security to the individual, but it won't actually fundamentally make that safe space secure for longer. So we felt it was appropriate to take those out so we could provide the service for everyone who applied during the year. We've also clarified within the policy that burglar alarms are not included. They never have been included, and that's for the same reason, that they don't materially make the inside of the property more secure for longer. And we also wanted within the policy to inform applicants that at some point in the future we may start to use body cams for the protection of both the applicants and our staff. We have had, not within the sanctuary scheme, but within ASB we have had some complaints from complainants who have claimed that our staff have said things that they haven't said, and we've had police witnesses there at the time which have supported that. And we felt that the introduction of body cams or a body cam to be shared between our ASB staff and also the sanctuary staff for use when they visit people within their own homes might be beneficial. This has been to the policy and overview working group, and the recommendation is that this is approved. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. It's a very comprehensive report, and I agree, and it is one that we are looking at with extreme concern, particularly as rises in not just domestic abuse but other abuse continues. Then to be cutting back on such a vital service is not in the best interests of the wider community that we serve. And I think people, particularly like Nottingham County Council, have got to take a very careful look at their priorities very quickly, because this is something that we will not support any further cuts in this programme. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Coleman.
It's really difficult to listen to that, isn't it? And to imagine that people need to have a space within their own home where they feel safe while the police come. And we don't very often in this council chamber have the opportunity to vote for something that we know might actually save people's lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, the numbers are going up. I mean, as Councillor Bunn quite rightly says, because of the cuts to services that support families in crisis, but also the cost of living crisis. As that deepens and there's more stresses on families, there is a greater pressure. So we can only assume that the need for this scheme will increase, you know, while ever the cost of living crisis continues to go at this pace, and while ever families are put under such extreme pressure all of the time. So I think it's really good that we're supporting this. I hope that we'll continue to support it, and I hope people will really give some thought to the simple fact that it is a terrible travesty that people have to be in such fear that they need a safe space within their own home. But it is no doubt better, particularly where children are involved, that people do stay in their own homes and can have a stable life. So I'm really happy to support this.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? Go on, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the Policy Overview Committee, but I can't recall Marrack being mentioned during any of the meetings, and it's here. There's Marrack and Broxton repeat Marrack cases. What does Marrack stand for, please?
Just before you do, I asked, this was actually done at council last time round, I asked the portfolio holder to give an explanation of what it is and what it does, but the officer's there tonight. Do you want to just explain?
Yeah. MARAC is the Multi-Agency Risk Assessment Group, or conference. Repeat high-risk domestic abuse cases are referred in. There's a meeting every 2 weeks, which usually takes the whole day, and that's just for the south of the county. Those high-risk cases are discussed and action plans are put in place around them, which include all the agencies taking responsibility, whether it's social care, health, police, fire, local councils, etc. So that's what MARAC does. MARAC will often make a referral if into sanctuary scheme if a referral has not already been made by the domestic abuse organisation which is supporting the victim.
Okay. It's something that we particularly keep close eye on, and Marissa's team in particular, and Nang will be able to do a terrific job in in trying to minimise the risk and exposure, potential dangers for people of all ages and all classes, from fear of not just domestic violence but abuse as well. Okay, any further questions or comments? No, if not, thank you very much for that presentation, Maurice, and thank you very much, Gabrielle, for your comments. Recommendation to approve the sanctuary scheme, remove the sector, all those in favour? And then that's unanimously agreed. Now to move on to Cabinet Work Programme on pages 427 to 428. I'll have to look for a couple of extra items for the meeting in November. We seem to be a bit light on the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that.
But the work programme tonight, I'm set out on pages 427 and 428. I'll move from the chair.
I second that.
Questions or comments?
Only, could you just enlighten me on what citizen visioning is halfway down?
Emma's going to help you with that. Help.
Is that the 100 people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on then. Yeah, I've got you. They've got you all wound up now. I'm ready to go. So go.
I'm ready. So it's to do with the project. We got a piece of work undertaken for about £80,000, and it was to do with people having a voice with it across the borough. So did we deal with flooding in a fair and equal way? And it's the report. It's just a notary report, but I think given that flooding is such a high priority item for members, I think it was important for members to be aware of that report.
Helen.
And we didn't pay that money. That 80,000 was a grant. We haven't paid it.
No, it's a grant. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it came out in the meeting. I'd be interested when the report comes. Interestingly, the Environment Agency produced a report a year or two ago, which fundamentally drew out that flood defence infrastructures and indeed environmental investment schemes are not proportionate across the country and are dependent on socio-economic factors and a range of other factors as well, and it will be interesting to see if anything comes out in that report compared to the Environment Agency's own analysis around that.
Yeah, we look forward to that. Okay, if any questions or comments on the Cabinet Work Programme? If not, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Then that's agreed. Moving on to item 10, which is exclusion of public and press. We're asked to resolve under Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972. Public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items that they made likely disclosure of exempt information. Move that from the chair.
I'll second that.
All those in favour? Just wait a few minutes while I disconnect the live feed. and realise when you bought it it's not transferable because you've got several modules missing, and one of them was fire. Sorry, are we still live?
No, no.